Okay, everybody. Uh, for those of you who stuck with me, I'm getting started a little late. Thank you. Tonight, I'm going to be turning a little acorn box. I'm going to be turning a little acorn box out of some very nicely spalted holly and a little bit of rosewood for a lid. See. So I'm going to get myself situated here. Oops, crap. All right. So I went ahead and prepared my blanks. I have a piece of spalted, stabilized, and dyed holly here, and a little piece of rosewood, like I mentioned earlier. Let's see. Let me go ahead and switch up the camera view here so we can get cracking. All right. So I'm going to start with the lid. I find that that's usually the easiest way to go. Um, Usually I use more than one chuck to do this, but just trying to show how you can do it with just the one. And go ahead and put this in here. Now, this is a piece of Florida rosewood from South Florida, and actually this stuff gives me, it actually affects my allergies pretty bad, so I might sound a little sniffly before this is all said and done, but we're gonna make do. Um, yeah, my friend Aaron from Born in the Barn Woodcrafts provided this, actually both pieces of wood for this project. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. To get started, I'm going to go ahead and start by cleaning off this bottom edge here. I made the example piece from the other part of this wood here, so I'm going to go ahead and true up the bottom of this blank to get started. I'll get my face shield on. In case you're wondering, I'm running the lathe at about 1500 RPM. All right. It's not really necessary for it to be flat. Now, because this blank is actually smaller than this one, so when I make my recess, I got to make sure. When I make my recess, I got to make sure that that the hole I put in here is smaller than this diameter. So that's something that we're going to be checking as we go along. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to. Oh no. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to a parting tool to do the hollowing on the bottom of the lid. So the first thing, so what I'm going to do, actually maybe I'll use that. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start in the center because I don't really know exactly how big I need to. I don't know exactly the size that I need, you know, to make sure that I'm smaller than this. So I'm going to start in the center. I'm going to cut a shallow hole. I'm going to cut a shallow recess, work my way out to the edge till I get where I want to be. And I'm going to do it shallow so I have an opportunity to recut it if I overshoot it. So some of you might be wondering why I don't just use calipers to arrive at the measurement that I need, and it's really just because I don't have to. I can go ahead and I can work from the dimensions of the piece. I can go ahead and cut this. I can go ahead and cut this recess, and I can check it to see how, how I'm doing, and get a pencil. Yeah, so I just set it up here and just to get a general idea of where I'm at. All right, that looks good. Looks like I got, let's see, switch to the other one here. I move this down a little closer. All right. So, as you can see right there, maybe, I have plenty of room here for the bottom edge on the lid of my box there. Got plenty of room out here for that, between this area and this area. And another thing too is when you're making these, this profile actually is turned in at the towards the bottom. Ooh. So you want to make sure that you leave enough room for that. So if you imagine this edge right here, a straight line, you need a little bit. You're going to need a little bit of extra thickness because you need to curve it in here while still leaving a little edge here so it'll stick out over the top of your acorn in much the way that an actual acorn would stick out. So now that I got that, let's see if I can move this thing out of my way. I'm not impeding your view. There we go. There we go. Now this recess doesn't have to be very deep. This recess doesn't have to be very deep. I mean, it could be pretty much, whatever dimensions that you determine, feel good for you. Now, in order to make sure you have a pretty decent fit between, oh man, whew, that Florida rosewood. Oh shit, I hadn't even noticed. Okay, looks like we're back. So anyway, like I was saying before, when you're cutting this recess, you really want this to be as straight as possible. That's going to guarantee you the best fit when you go to mate the two halves together. Okay. So now I got a recess here. I'm going to check this one more time. Make sure that we're in good shape here for the tenon. Looks good. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and create a little bit of a hollow in the bottom of this thing. That didn't work. Alright. I'm going to switch to my spindle gouge. I feel like it'll give me a little bit better access. Go ahead and readjust my tool rest a little bit here. Okay, and then I'm just going to create a little bit of a dished out area down here on the inside of the lid there. Alright, looking good. I'm going to use my parting tool. Just clean up that little corner in there. Okay. So it's at this point you want to go ahead and sand inside the lid of your box there to make sure that because this is really your only chance to do that. So we grab a little piece of sandpaper here and we'll attend to that. Let's get this out of the way. Crank the speed down a little bit. Not quite that much. I always sand at a pretty low speed. I'm down around 500 RPM. It never seems to benefit me any to sand any faster than that. All right. On the inside of these acorn boxes, I like to put a little bit of texturing. It's not required, but I do it just because, you know, I have the tool to do it with. And I'm going to be using this micro texturing and spiraling tool from Robert Sorby. And I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit of texture on the inside of this box here. Let's see. I haven't really seen anything in the chat, so I don't know if everything's back up and running or not. Could you guys let me know? Let's see. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and use this texturing tool, and I'm going to add just a little bit of texture right here on the inside. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and turn this wheel around. The pin that holds it can only be threaded in one way, and from time to time you have to switch the wheel around so that you can get the head of the thumb screw out of your way. So let's go ahead and just get a little texture in there. I'm going to crank the speed back up to about a little over 1,000 RPM. Oops. Alright, I'm going to approach this at a 45-degree angle with the tool. The approach is 45 degree and the tool is at 45 degrees. And alright, I don't know how well that's going to show, but we got a nice little spiral in there. Yep, good. So now that I've gotten that part done, it's probably a good idea, while you still have it in the chuck this way, to go ahead and form this bottom curve here a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of the material away right here so that I can clean up this bottom edge, so I don't have to worry about that, because once I take it off out of this chuck, I won't have the opportunity to do that, and unless I run the risk of marking up the top rim of the bottom of the acorn here. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that right now. Grab my bowl gouge here. Drop the tool rest down just a hair. I'm going to be cutting about center. So I don't want to take off a whole lot, because a little bit of this shoulder here is going to be taken up by the tenon on the base of the acorn, and I still want to have a little bit of a shoulder protruding out. And as usual, you want to watch the top profile and not where you're cutting, the opposite profile from where you're cutting. Alright, let me see here. Alright. And while I have this up here, I'm going to go ahead and start to shape the top just a little bit. Alright. See how that looks? That looks pretty good. So I'm not going to worry about sanding it right now. I'll worry about that later. But right now, looks like we have, yeah, that's about right. Good. Okay, so now that we've done those parts, now it's time to take this out of the chuck and start working on the base of the acorn. Let me check the chat, see what we got going on. So just set that aside. Switch to the base piece. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to be cutting a tenon up here on the top to get this to fit. And excuse me. And basically we're going to cut it. We're going to start with a very small tenon, until we get our fit, and then we'll cut it to full depth. I'm going to switch to my beading and parting tool for making this tenon here. I'll be using a peel and cut. Alright. So I just want to work really right off the end of this. Just taking off a little bit at a time. Take off a little, check it, take off a little, check it. Again, you could use the calipers, but I find this way to be fairly efficient. Alright, that's pretty close. Yep. At this point in the game, you really want this to be a pretty tight fit, because we're going to use this tenon as a jam chuck of sorts to finish off the lid of our acorn box. So at this point, you want the fit to be pretty good. You want it to be pretty tight. Just about there. It's a little bit too tight. We'll switch to the parting tool just to work my way right into this corner here. Okay, so that's what you want. It's on there good and tight, so that I can go ahead and work. So now I can go ahead and I can work the top half of this. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my tailstock, have a little extra support down here, and then we'll go ahead and shape the top part of the cap. So, I'm going to take just a couple moments here and move some things off of the bed of the lid. Alright. Okay. Got a little bit of tail support going on there. And now we can go ahead and finish turning the top of this. Okay. One of the nice things about turning these acorn boxes is there's so many different acorns out there in the world. You don't really have to hit any kind of target for what it looks like. You just turn it until it looks like an acorn to you. I don't know if any of you turned this Florida rosewood before, but maybe it's just me, but man, really beats me up. Like I said, this is a good place to let your imagination go wild. You can shape the top of your acorn pretty much any way you like. So I'm making a little bit of room here. That didn't exactly come out the way I had planned, but it'll be just fine. Alright. Alright. It's looking a little bit like an acorn. I'm going to switch to my spindle gouge so I can get in here and take care of some of these little details. By the way, these tools, I get a lot of questions about these. These are the Excelsior tools from Robert Sorby. They have a titanium nitride coating on them that allows you to sharpen them to a much sharper edge than just plain high-speed steel. A lot of people are, ask about that from time to time, so figured I'd mention that. Now this is the same tool that I prefer to use when I'm making finials. So now I'm going to try to cut this sweep here. Alright. Okay. Then I'm going to go back and clean that up a little bit and sand it. Start with a little 220 here. Crank this down. Actually. Alright. So while I'm sanding on this, because I realize it's not an incredibly exciting portion of the wood turning, You guys doing good out there? I know lately my wife and I, we've been fretting over getting our kid back to school with the school openings and things, and trying to make sure that we select the safest option for him. And there's some of you may know, I work for the school board, and my wife and I are very concerned about, returning to school and all that. So I hope that you're all, I hope that you guys are all staying safe out there, and that some viable options are being presented for those of you with kids, things that can work for your family. So anyway, that's that. Now, I personally like to cut my stems off at a little bit of a 45-degree angle, but I'll do that later over at the bandsaw. So now that we got our top set up, let's go ahead and move this out of the way. So now that we have this all set up, we can go ahead and pull this off. Now, this is a pretty tight fit. This is a pretty tight fit at this point. What I'm gonna actually do is I'm gonna wait until I finish turning it before I attempt to do anything about it. But if it still fits too tightly, then what I'll do is I'll sand this tenon at the end. But the other thing I find is that when you're doing the sanding and things, and the wood heats up a little bit, a lot of times it'll loosen up a little bit on you. So it's good to keep that fit tight as long as you can. Man, it's really on there. So, all right. So there's our lid. All right, complete with a little texture in the bottom there. Let me get my other camera set back up so you can see some of the hollowing process here. Switch back. There we go. Okay. All right, so the next order of business is to hollow out the inside of this. For that, I'm going to use my spindle gouge. Get my speed back up here. Okay. You use the bowl gouge real quick to clean up this top surface. Right there on the edge. The middle doesn't matter, we'll be cutting that away anyhow. Be using a little bit of a back hollowing technique. You're going to be cutting off this top wing here. Hang on. Nah, that wasn't good. All right. I don't look too bad. I think I might have knocked it loose out of the chuck there a little bit. Go, make sure it didn't crack. We got a little void there. Let me get a little bit of CA and tighten that up. We got a little, I don't know what that is. Looks like maybe an inclusion or something like that. So let's go take care of that. So we're going to use a little bit of Starbond medium here and fill this in. Switch up. So I got this, I don't know, maybe some kind of inclusion or some kind of internal stress in the wood, and I want to make sure this material is a little bit punky, and I want to make sure that this piece doesn't fly off. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of CA here just to stabilize that just a little bit. I mostly use the Starbond products when I'm wood turning, and it's really nice because they always include the micro tip, the micro applicator tips come standard with all your bottles of CA, which is really nice. Helps to get it right where you need it. Yeah. Yeah, I got this blank from Aaron, and he was, I guess, thanks Aaron for answering Matt's question. Put that away. All right. Here's my So I'm going to switch tools here, switch to a scraper to finish out the hollowing. I think this is going to work just fine. Let's see if I can get a little bit of light because I'm going blind. Alright. I don't want to go too deep with this, and let's see. I don't want to go too deep with it, and it looks like it may be off center just a hair from that catch I had earlier, but I think we're yeah, we're about good there. Probably go just a little bit deeper. got a little nib down here to clean up, and we'll be good to go. Alright, let's clean that up with a scraper. Alright. So now we have, let's see. Okay. So now we have this nice and hollowed out. There we go. Now that I have this hollowed out, now I need to determine where the bottom is so I know where to stop shaping on the outside. So I'm going to use, if I can find it, my little bottom saver. Okay, change of plans, can't find that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use the tip of my tool here. I'm going to place that down on the bottom. Use the front of my fingernail as a depth stop. And that's going to tell me approximately where the bottom of my acorn is. Bring my tool rest up here. And then, oops, I want to be able to leave a little bit of I want to leave just a little bit of a point on the bottom of it. So I need to be just a little bit beyond the beyond the bottom, beyond the depth of the hollow. So I'm going to bring my pencil out here and just come out just a little bit past the bottom and make a line. I'm also going to make a mark right here where the bottom is, just so I'm aware of where that limitation is. And then at this point I can shape this however I want. So what I really want to do is I want to have a little bit of a rounded shape. It does taper in just a little bit at the top, come down, leave a little point. And what we'll be doing to get that point is we'll create a jam chuck. I don't know if we'll have enough of this material left, but if not, we'll grab another piece of scrap and we'll make a jam chuck to hold it so that we can finish off the bottom. Let's go ahead and shape the bottom of this. It does look a little bit like it's off center, but you know, that's okay. And go ahead and turn it true first, and then we'll start shaping. Okay, so now I'm going to start the process of hollowing it, of shaping it down. But before I do that, I'm going to use my parting tool to define the bottom of the box a little bit. Let's give me some guidelines to work to. So I know that this is the bottom. I know this is the bottom of the interior of the box. So I'm going to start to curve this from about here, curve it down towards that bottom. And I'm also going to be checking to make sure that I'm getting relatively even walls as I go by using a pinch kind of action with my fingers here. There's no fear of turning through the sides because it's actually quite thick if you count the shoulder here as well. You count the tenon and the shoulder. The sidewalls are actually have a pretty good amount of thickness to them, so there's no real danger that you'll cut through it. Now, whenever you're shaping, you want to always watch your horizon line so you can see what your cuts are actually doing. It's very difficult to see what the shape is looking like when you're looking at the tool end of the cut. Oh, shoot. All right. For a second there, I thought I kind of like missed the mark because my bottom mark is way down here, and I'd kind of like gone into a pretty good bit there. So, whew, I was a little scared, but I think I'm gonna be all right. Alright, continuing to check to make sure that my walls are nice and even. Still feeling pretty good there. So now I'm going to go ahead and start removing some of this base material down here to get down to the point. And this holly is stunning. It's got all kinds of interest in here, and adding a little bit of finish will really pop those colors. Thanks again, Aaron. Okay. Now that I'm down close to where I'm going to go, I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of time to sand. And I'm also going to check the fit of the lid here. That shoulder is a little bigger than I would like, so I may just go ahead and turn that down a little bit. And then after that, I'm going to sand that edge just a little bit because it fits a little tight. Maybe not. Alright, so I'm going to turn away a little bit of the material on the shoulder. Get that a little bit more in proportion. Well, maybe I shouldn't do that. Still kind of think it moved a little bit on me when I had that catch on the inside, so I won't do that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and part this off now and make my jam chuck to finish shaping the bottom. Alright. So here's where we're at right now. Had a little nick come out of the shoulder there. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick that up, but there's a little nick right there, but that's okay. Lid fits nicely. So now we're gonna go ahead and reverse mount this into a jam chuck and get the bottom shaped. Alright, pull that off of there. Where'd my jam chuck go? Alright. Let's see if this chuck will hold this thing. If not, I'll have to switch out. Yep, there we go. Alright. So this is the one I used for the last. This is the jam chuck I used for the last one. Kind of jokingly thought that maybe it would fit, but clearly not. So let's go ahead and cut a new one. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by cleaning off the end of this and truing up the end. Okay. Then we'll true up the end of it a little bit. Don't want to take off too much. We don't have a whole lot of room to work with here, as this is not much smaller than that. So I'm going to go ahead and start attempting to make a groove to hold this edge here. I'm going to be using the parting tool for that as well. Let's get some of these tools out of the way. Alright. So I'm looking at this and it looks like it's like this here is a good, oops. This looks like a good place to start right here. So I don't want to make that too deep yet till I check and see how close I am. Alright, need to go out just a little bit further. Let's see. Jam chucks can be a little fidgety, but the wood on wood joint is really nice because it doesn't damage your work, and you don't have to risk crushing the tenon on your box like you might if you were using a chuck, using the metal jaws of a chuck. And it looks like that fit is pretty good. I'm gonna come in just a little bit from there. Try to sneak up on it, make sure I get the fit I'm looking for. So I need to take off just a little bit more down there in the bottom. thinking that might do it. Nope, just a little bit more. All right, I think we're just about there. When you're making these jam chucks, you don't really have to worry too much, because if you miss the fit, you could always use a paper towel to get in there, and you can always use a paper towel to get in there and take up the extra space. But this feels just about right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean off this little nub a little bit here carefully. And then I'm going to bring up the tailstock momentarily and for extra support, and then we'll get the bottom of this thing shaped up, get this project finished. Now the jam chuck, the fit of the jam chuck is actually pretty good, but it's not a super secure hold, so you really don't want to be pushing your luck. Actually, in this case, I'm not going to bring out the tailstock support. The reason why is because I want to have a nice little point at the bottom, and I'm concerned that the sharp point on the tailstock might indent it and foul up that nice little edge there. So basically, I'm going to take some really mindful cuts, mindful of the fact that this piece is held in here with a jam chuck, and slowly work this material away. So for the majority of the waste removal, what I'm doing is I'm working from the end down to hopefully push any pressures that I'm applying would hopefully push it into the jam chuck, versus if I was cutting from the side, it might push it and dislodge it from that side. And I'm going to go ahead and take down a little bit more of this material, and then when I go to do when I go to do the final cuts, then I can just come along and make some really nice light cuts to refine this point here, making very, very light cuts, and I think that will be just fine. Alright, that right there just about does it. Let me reposition my tool here a little bit, and then we'll come back this way. Starting to make some very, very light cuts. Alright, let's take a look at that, see where we're at. Alright, that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and sand that the rest of the way in submission. See here. Get my speed turned down a little bit. Go ahead and sand that a little bit. Alright. Go ahead and get that sanded. You know, if you're new to wood turning and you're having a little bit of trouble with your tool finish, you know, sandpaper can be used to fair curves and remove grooves and things. And you know, don't be afraid to sand a little bit. I know a lot of people talk about tool finish and all that kind of stuff, and it's an excellent goal to shoot for sure. But you know, if you got to sand that puppy into submission, that's just the way it's got to go, right? So anyway, go ahead and pull this off. Put those together. Switch to the other camera here. All right. All right. Excuse my my face shield hair. I'm putting that face shield on and off. But anyway, here we go. We have our little acorn. Little bit. This little divot here. I left a little extra material on the top so that I could take it off later. And like I said, I like to put a little bit of a diagonal, a little bit of an angled cut on the top just to make it kind of look like it was a little bit more like it was cut off a tree or whatever. But as you can see, that turned out pretty nicely. You know, all it needs now is a little bit of finishing, and a little bit of finishing, it'll be good to go. So, and this fit is a wood turner's fit. If I was going to sell this, I'd probably have to sand it down a little bit because people that buy these kinds of things, they're not interested in that. But I like to hear this sound. I don't know if it's going to catch it or not, but that sound when you take the lid off of a box. So, anyway, I guess that just about does it for me. This is my final result here. Let's see if I can get. There you go. There you go. There's the final result right there. And if you haven't tried these, I highly recommend it. I got a little bit of that right there and there. These are a lot of fun, and people seem to really love these. So anyway, thank you. Let's see. Doesn't look like I have any questions. So thank you all for joining me in the shop tonight. And bear with me through my technical difficulties. I'm going to keep doing these lives. The goal is to try to do them on Wednesdays at 7:30 Eastern Time. So hopefully I'll see you right here next week. Anyway, till then, dread not and make something. Peace.